Then non-governmental entities are becoming very active. This is a huge area, starting from business, political parties, religious organizations. The list of non-governmental entities is very large. So they are also active in international affairs. Means that the diplomat now has no longer just to deal with foreign ministry and his diplomats counterparts, but he has to deal with a much wider audience. And so now public diplomacy and public outreach will become very important. And of course, this is again the same thing, the international linkages are more complicated. Governments, that is track one. When you say track one, we mean government level. There, federal governments, state governments, local governments are involved. Then you have interactions between parliaments, judiciaries, regulatory bodies like the banking system or other regulatory bodies may interact with each other. Business and financial organizations, companies. Now we come to track two, which is outside government. Media, religious, cultural and political organizations interact. The CPM interacts regularly with communist parties all across the world. They have their own conferences, they discuss. Socialist International, similar groupings are there. Academia, students, women's organizations, they also interact with each other. And a lot of NGOs, now there are international NGOs, like Amnesty International, some of whom are quite active, Greenpeace, so on. The multilateral system has also become more diverse. There are many more organizations today than there used to be. The membership has grown and the range of activities has grown. Then there are also other kind of organizations involving smaller number of countries, like the EU, IBSA, the BRICS, and so on, ASEAN 10 and so on. So the range of multilateral organizations is also becoming more diverse. Now let's look at what happens to how India was dealing with the rest of the world. This is only a rough thing. Many people can analyze this differently, but this is part of history. Many of you were not born in some of this period, so it's nice to go back to it. In 48 to 62, India's role in world affairs was defined and articulated by Nehru personally. It was based on non-alignment, anti-colonialism, and state-led development. And Nehru had a high international reputation and standing. People listened to him, and he had a high profile personally. Although India had just become independent, it was not a strong country. Nehru could play a role in the Korean War. He played a role in getting Austria its independence after the occupation of the Soviets. So he played a role far beyond what could be expected from a newly independent country which was struggling to deal with difficult problems. 62 to 71, India's role declined. Nehru's role himself declined. Chinese war in 62. He was personally humiliated by that, and we had internal and external problems. 71 to 84, Indira Gandhi led India's rise in South Asia. She made India the undisputed leader in South Asia because of the decisive victory over Pakistan, 71. Okay. 84 to 91, after Indira Gandhi, again India's role declined. And there was a period of transition to coalition governments, which is now we are going through that phase in our democracy. In 91 onwards, again India's role began to increase, basically because of the economic reforms, higher growth, our markets became bigger, we were purchasing more goods and services, so we became attractive to many countries who wanted to sell things to India. And then of course we developed our nuclear capability. And global integration started bringing India much more linked with the outside world. So that's where we are now in that phase of our democracy. Now, what are our external challenges? I mean, this is a very short description. One can go into this in great detail, and one should go into each of these in more detail. Number one is our relationship with our neighbors, especially China and Pakistan, with whom we have had border disputes and conflicts. And we can talk a lot about that. Many lectures would not be enough to go into all this. It's very much in the news today. Relations with our extended neighborhood, beyond our immediate neighbors. The Gulf and Central Asia, very important for our energy supplies. Southeast Asia, again for our economic linkages. And the Gulf region is also very important for our workers abroad. Relations with major economies, US, Japan, EU, Russia, Brazil, and here China occupies another position here. They are one of our biggest trading and investment partners. Trading partner, yes, China, and the EU, of course, the big investment partner. Beyond that, we have areas which are not yet fully explored in our foreign relations, where we have a lot of room for growth, a lot of business is possible. That is Africa and Latin America. We have a big potential for increasing our engagement with these regions. Then there are some themes which are global, not based on region. The most important one, I would say, for India is energy security. Today we are importing a huge amount of our energy needs from abroad, and if we don't have enough energy, our economic growth will be strangled. And to depend on energy supplies from abroad to the extent of even 80 or 90% is making ourselves very vulnerable. So we are trying to get out of this. This is partly an internal challenge as well, but we have to have assured supplies of oil and gas, nuclear fuel, and other technology. Then we have environment and climate change. Today the climate change is being seen, effects are being seen, and the world community is saying that there must be a total limit on the amount of carbon dioxide which can be emitted by all countries. Now when you fix the total amount, and you have countries like us and China which are growing, obviously somebody else has to cut, and they are resisting that. And they are insisting that India and China should cut. So there is a big tension in that field. Nuclear technology and arms control, we have gotten over that with the entry into the NSG. Now we are recognized as a responsible state with nuclear weapons, and also we have access to nuclear fuel, which is very important. Technology is something we can develop, but nuclear fuel we don't have enough uranium reserves. Trade in goods and services. So here, countries want us to open our markets, bring more goods in. When we try to export our services there, they put restrictions saying that our employment is being threatened. And similarly, in certain sectors like textiles, some countries are trying to restrict our exports. So trade in goods and services, the whole agenda of liberalizing the trade in goods and services and making it as free as possible so that everyone can benefit, that has not been fulfilled. We still have the Doha round which is going on. After the US election, let us see what happens. Technically and theoretically, if you have open trade, it benefits everybody. Even though there may be some job losses here and there, but there will be job gains elsewhere. But theory is one thing, actual practice is another. The global financial system is in a state of disarray. The European Union is struggling with the euro crisis. 2008 saw a global financial system almost on the verge of collapse. There is a contradiction. The international business don't want good regulation. They don't want tight regulation. They want to have freedom to move money rapidly anywhere they like under any conditions. But this at the same time makes the whole system unstable. Today if you move $100 billion into India, the markets will go to 25,000. Next day you move $100 billion out, markets will collapse to 18,000. So the regulators and many people all across the world want better regulation. They want something stable. So that's the problem we have in financial system. Access to high technology, because many of these high technology things are also can be used for defense. A group of countries has put restrictions on these technologies. Every time you want to access this technology, you have to go to licensing, but to get, the government has to clear their thing. The US has a Bureau of Export Control, which is very lot of paperwork, more than what we have in India, to get permission to export any technology. Some of you have gone to the US recently. if you are going for PhD or research in certain subjects, you will find that your visa may take 6 months to be cleared. This is because they have a list of sensitive technologies. They don't want these technologies to leak into hostile countries. And the effect of all this is that research students, if they are working in that particular technology area which is listed, their visa application it goes to clearance to a number of US agencies, including the CIA, to check whether this technology can be leaked. So you end up waiting for months for visas. So this is something we have to fight against. We are a responsible country. We are not enemies of the US. And we are not the ones who are leaking technology to terrorists or hostile countries. Then, big problem, terrorism and violent extremism. Both we have. Terrorism we have faced, and violent extremism is there in the Naxalite infested areas. So this is a global problem. Many countries are facing this. And this has come up once again. When it affected the US directly, then suddenly everybody woke up and said this is a big problem and started taking action. Before that, we were shouting and saying that, yeah, this is a problem, but nobody took us seriously. Unfortunately, when World Trade Center happened, then the attitude of people changed. Terrorism anywhere is a threat to democracy and peace everywhere. This is a fundamental concept which people have to understand. Not just in government, but the public. So maritime security and safety, we have problems with piracy in our Indian Ocean. And I don't have to talk about a recent incident which actually was not piracy but is connected with this. We are still seeing the results. Maritime safety, volume of trade going by ships is very large. Ships need to be protected, and safety also means that there's certain ship operators like some of our truck drivers who use vehicles which are not fit for the roads and cause accidents. This happens at the sea also. Some people don't want to spend money on repairing and making their ships run properly and safely. The result is that crew members die and there are oil spills damaging the environment. The growing problem, cyber security and cybercrime. So global integration, ICT brought the world together. The bright side, the dark side is that criminals located in one part of the world, if they have the technical know-how, they can hack into systems thousands of miles away, steal secrets, banking secrets, transfer monies, that is cybercrime. They can damage installations which depend on ICT infrastructure, willfully cause damage, it is cyber terrorism. So both these problems are becoming immense. And this is a transnational crime. Somebody sitting, say in Mexico might cause a problem in Malaysia. So what law will apply? Under which law you prosecute them? This Italian marine who fired the ship, he was on an Italian ship, but the bullet hit somebody who was on an Indian ship. Just imagine that this is separated by thousands of miles. Well, what law will you apply? There's no law. There's no system. You can spend years discussing how to settle this problem. So that's one of the problems which are coming up. Then on the international organizations front, we are dealing with a lot of challenges. Our basic approach is that many of these organizations were set up in 1947-45, after the war. And they were led by the big powers, the winners of the World War. The United Nations Charter was fashioned at the time, right? The big five, who are now the big five, they were the winners in the war. So they gave themselves extraordinary powers, and the rest of the countries were there just to give the system more legitimacy. So we are now constantly trying to make these organizations more democratic, more accountable to all member states, and of course, give priority to development, because development is what we need. We don't want more security and more police. We want development, the international. We don't want more police coming and looking at human rights, things like that. We want equal, if not more, attention given to development, financing. So we are seeking a permanent seat in the UN Security Council, and we want to reform the UN to make it more accountable and to serve our needs better. Similarly, we want a greater role in the IMF, World Bank, WTO. IMF and World Bank, the voting rights of countries are determined by their share, contribution they make. It's like a corporation. Now, our economy has grown so much that our economic strength is not reflected in the voting structure of these organizations. So strangely, here is one case where the United States and the richer countries are worried about countries like India, China, Brazil getting more voting rights in the IMF and World Bank because they feel that their dominance gets threatened. Everywhere else they are telling us you must contribute more, you must play a bigger role. The WTO, again, problem in WTO is instead of focusing on the problem of goods and services, they are moving into all kinds of other things like fair labor standards, attaching non-economic issues to trade negotiations, getting involved in environment, all kinds of other things. So this is diverting attention from the core problem which needs to be solved. Now we already have a permanent presence in bodies like IEA, ILO, but the permanent presence here is different because here these organizations have a bigger governing body, not 15 like the UN Security Council, but 35 in the IEA. In the ILO it's 28, 56, sorry, 56. So when you have a bigger governing body, there is a more reasonable chance of India becoming a permanent player in that. So we have to, UN Security Council 15 is too small. So we have to make it at least 30. Otherwise this system or this whole idea will not work. Okay.